Hello everyone. So today we'll talk about unit testing. Uh, Before that, I want to talk about the testing in Flutter. So basically, in Flutter, there is three type of testing. So if we go for testing in Flutter, and you'll find out that testing in Flutter. So there is actually three type of testing: unit testing, widget testing, and integration testing. Okay, so Okay, so here is that. So you can see in testing there is typically three type of testing: unit testing, widget testing, and integration testing. And what is actually unit testing? This sort of unit testing has been done by the developers that doesn't have to interact with the UI, that only works like a um, works for a method or a class. Okay, so nothing's really related to the UI, something like that. But it can interact with the network calls, because for the network calls we don't need the UI interaction. Okay, that's fine enough. And you can see there are some sort of usability of them. For example, unit testing has the confidence of low. For the widget testing, but the higher confidence. For the integration, but much higher, or the highest confidence. And the maintenance cost for the unit testing, this is easy to do, so, and it takes less time, so that's why it says that the maintenance cost is low. For the widget, it takes much more time than the unit testing. That shows that that will take the higher, and blah 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 dependencies. There are some dependencies for the unit testing. Basically, all the dependencies for the unit testing are already resolved by the Flutter team. Again, for the widget testing, that is also by the Flutter team. Integration kinda is not currently coming uh, with the basic project that we create from our Flutter from our Flutter IDE, like VS Code, or uh, the IntelliJ. Okay, but you can add that dependency by yourself, and that is also from Flutter, so you don't have to worry about the third-party dependencies at all. Okay, then execution speed, you can see with the testing and the regular unit testing fast, and in integration testing is comparatively slow. So, and you should read the thing if you have some time, otherwise I'm going to describe a little bit about them. So what is actually unit testing? I have already discussed to you that unit testing is just the testing of some methods or some class. Okay, so what is the widget testing? Widget testing is something like, is an widget is working properly? Is that for example, you want to test the text that is appearing on your window is hello world. Okay, so you want to test that, is that a hello, hello good morning, or is that a hello good evening? Okay, in this sort of thing you can be tested with widget testing. This is much popular. That's why if you create a new project, the test appears or comes with that new project will be the widget test. And there is some integration testing, and this is pretty useful because what it does is really the uh, automate your app testing. For example, you for example, for using an app you have to log in. So by using the integration testing, what you can do, you can automatically fill up the email or the password, and you can press the login, and your login will be successful or failed. And this sort of thing, what we used to do it manually, you can do it automatically by the integration test. So there is another name of integration test, and that is also automation test. Okay, so if you are really familiar with the Selenium or Espresso, then you know what is the automation or integration test. Espresso comes with Android Studio, and the Selenium comes with maybe basically it's for the Java, but it supports C# and PHP and a lot of things. So I hope if you are really confident with Selenium and you should play with the integration test, and this is most reliable, but it takes much time and it is not enough matured now, but you can do pretty much. I can say that it can fill up to 70 to 90% of your requirement currently, okay, without any third party integration, but you can again use some party dependencies that are currently coming in pub.dev. Okay, fine. And for the widget testing, this is almost complete. There is nothing you have to do with. And in our next video, I will show you a very good example of widget testing. But in this video, I'm going to talk about only unit testing. So basically, unit testing is pretty simple. Uh, First of all, for the unit testing, you don't have to run your main app. Okay, so this thing doesn't need to be run. All the thing that need to be run will be run inside that test. Okay, so basically it's a good practice to follow the structure the same as the main thing. And if you are already familiar with Android Studio or the Android project or Android development, you already know that these things are pretty much same. Okay, so if I create another folder right in here, we will do we'll create another folder right in here, and that will really solve a lot more confusion when you are testing. And believe me, it will solve it will save a lot of time. Okay, so I'm going to test a simple file. For example, for that I'm going to create a very simple file or a dot file, like would be or name it. Okay, this is an calculator. Okay, so calculator. So we have created a calculator. I'm sorry because I it not should be a bit what refactor. It not should be the capital letter. And now uh, I have just created the class, the calculator, and right inside that I'm gonna add or okay, I'm gonna add a method. In that time, the method would be it should return an integer or maybe the double will be fine. Double. I'm gonna name that as sum, and basically it will take 3 parameters instead of 1. So and b it and c. Or do you have any good example? I don't know. So I'm really intending to make something really simple. I don't want to make that really difficult to understand. That's why I am just creating a very simple example right in here, so that you don't get confused when you are working. Okay, so doesn't matter. So you can add them double or integer, doesn't matter. And if yeah, I can even cast that thing. Okay, fine. So what we want to do now, I want to test this function is working properly or not. What we can do, so in that case I need to create a test case. So as it is on the parent directory, so we will just add a new file that should be just like the same name, only that will uh, you have to add a test right in here. Okay, and that's it. So calculator test, and that is fine. Now what? Now for running the test, you must wrap all the test inside a main function. And you know everything runs inside the main, whether it's a test or it's a main. So now we're gonna create a test. So okay, create a test. I need a description. So let's test addition. Okay, so very simple name. Let's test addition. uh, okay, so simple error because of single quotation marks. For the body, there should be an callback only, nothing else. So inside that callback, I'm gonna check this thing. So first of all, for using that method, I need the offset of that class. So calculator that comes from the new calculator class. So you can uh, delete new, that doesn't matter, and then you can just run that thing. Okay, so calculator dot it is what is sum. Okay, sum 10 10 5 equal to probably what I'm going to do now. Okay, I will raise. So just now I'm going to test that thing. So I expect if I calculate this sort of thing, the result would be 25. Let's check it. It is. Let's test it, or let's unit test it. Is okay or not. So run that thing. You can see it says it is fine. It says okay, your test is successful. Let's say let's test about 22. What about if I expect 22? Then it should be an error. You can see there's an error. Your test case hasn't been uh, worked successfully. That's why it is saying that it was expected 22, but actually it has 5. So I hope you understand what did I try to show you right in here. Now we'll go for more advanced thing. So first of all, I'm going to delete this sort of thing, these two class that we have added. Now what we are trying to do, just forget about that main class. So as we are doing nothing with the main things, we are only concerning about the test. We don't have to care about the main class at all. So inside the data class, as we know, for all the network calls, we basically do under the repository or the data. So in the data folder, I have created an class API provider. What it does? So basically, it holds the network call, nothing else. For example, your network get call, your network post call. You can even call that as API repository. That's fine. But I have named that just provider. That's it. What it has, it just creates an object of the client, a very simple object. You can do even that inside a constructor. But as I am not going to use that, okay, just don't care about that. Okay, let's see. In here, I am actually parsing an JSON, and for that I am using the HTTP dependencies for my network fetching. And how we are doing that, so this is very simple. I have just created a simple function, and that should be asynchronous as it performs the network calls, and it's really expecting a response from client.get. We have created the client from this API endpoint, and after that, when you get the response, it needs to be JSON decoded, or it needs to be converted into a model POSO. Okay, model or POSO, whatever you understand. If you are comes from the mobile development, you must understand POSO. But if you are from a web development section, then you must understand the model. So I'm just converting my response into a model class. So yeah, maybe I should have uh, do some try catch sort of thing, but I was trying to make that as simple as possible. That's why I just abandoned the try catch sort of thing. So what it's doing, let me show you again. So first of all, it there is an item model. So what is the actual item model? So item model is nothing but a very simple model class or puzzle. So first of all, I want to show you what is actually that body has. So if I run that thing, so as this is a get call, I can just run that URL. You can see this is the JSON I'm getting. So it has actually the 4 key pairs, user ID 1, blah 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 blah, user ID, title, body. So these are the 4 key. That's why in the item model, so I have created the model inside this model folder and let's tag another class item model, and inside that for the 4 key, okay, just delete it. Okay, fine. Okay. I mean, one of that cross that tab. So it has 4 key. Okay, the first one is user ID, and then the ID, then the title, and the body. And from the response, you will understand that which type of data type is holds. So first two is integer, last two is a string. So first two integer, last two is string. And I have just created some getters and a very simple from JSON method that will parse the JSON into the model. Okay, so this is a type of name constructor. If you are confident with the Dart, I hope you understand what is that. So go for the API provider again, and now I'm just calling the constructor, the name constructor of the item model, and passing the map right in here. So you can see the JSON.decode actually, if I show you the description of JSON.decode, so actually so it really passes a map, nothing else, from the response.body. So so from the response.body, it decoded into a simple map, and this map will be converted into the model class. And where is a very simple print? We just did that, that's fine enough, and then return that model. So this is a very simple class, a very simple get call or get call method. So we'll test that thing is working or not. For that, I have created the same structure data folder, set that, and then the class. Okay, just with the test uh, suffix on the suffix. So as well as we wrap that thing into the main method and then created two test class. Let me show you the first class. So the I have named it as API real test. So now we are in the main concept of this video, and everything we have talked about before was just for the basic, the actual motto of this video. Okay, see what it has. So in API real test, this is the description for the first test, and what it's doing is really creating an object of this API provider. Okay, fine enough. And then you can see it's really creating the client. So you can if you are convenient with the constructor, then you can do the same sort of thing by using a constructor and making this private. I hope you understand. If you don't, just let me know. But should I show you? Okay, let me show you. Okay, so just give me 1 sec. I will show you what I'm just trying to say. So client, okay. Yeah, client, and API provider, and let's show this. Okay, so there is another way, so I can, this would be much, but yes. So there is so this is the another way you can write sort of thing. At that time, what you got to do, you have to pass that client object right in that parameter. Okay, so how? So new client, just client right in here. So this is just the same. Let me prove you. So if you okay, so this showing some sort of error, fine. So wait, let me show you this is working. First of all, so I have just run the test and test pass. So the thing I was trying to do is the same. Fine. I hope most of us is convenient with the constructor instead of this. So I have the constructor, not the field. Enough. Let's go here. Now let me discuss this thing. Wait again. So in this time, what I'm really trying to do is, so first of all, we have created the API provider. So as we are not using that anymore, not that. So we have created the object of the API provider by providing the client. So what is this client? So this is the HTTP client, and that provides the HTTP connection to us. That provides, and this is the real connection. So there is actually HTTP does support two sort of connection or two sort of client. One is the real client or the real connection, that is the client, and another is mock client, that is for the mocking or testing. Okay, so I will tell about the mock client. So you can say there is another method that should another test. On that test I will show how to mock and why should I. So now you can see I have just called that method and get the result and then compare. So if the item.id, so let me show you, you can see that has the id of 1. If I run that API, the API will give the that response, and that response the user id is 1 expecting. So item.id 1, and you have, I have already shown you that I was response nothing fishy, everything. So I hope you understand what is that. So now fishy thing, the mocking. So before that, let me tell you something. What is actually mocking? And as I have just changed some code from here, maybe, yeah, maybe, okay, just I was trying to do something. Okay, just excuse me. Okay, fine. So let's go here, and now I will describe you this to you. What it does. So first of all, the description I have provided is API fake test. I'm saying that it really faked that test. What is that actually? So let's just think that currently the user ID is 1, but when you are working after 2 months or 3 months, the backend team is providing for the same URL, for the same parameter, they are giving the different result. What will happen? Your test will be failed. But that not should be happen, because there is nothing wrong with your application. If you understand, don't let me say that again. Let's just think you are an app developer and there is another person with you who is who is a web developer. So you are making the app, is the backend for you. And currently, you have created the test case as before, and everything is working fine. But after 3 months, 3 months for the same API, for some business logic change or for some data changes, the data input, let's just think everything is fine. For example, they have the same keys, or uh, everything is fine, but the data has changes, or even there is some issue can there is some case when the key can also be changed. For example, the user ID can be like people ID. So what will happen to your code? Your code should be fail. Actually, your test case should fail. So how can we resolve this sort of thing? Because there is nothing wrong with your application. Your application's performance should be fine. How can we actually uh, solve this sort of thing? So let me tell you one thing. That if the key changes, for example, the user ID has changed as the people ID, what will happen? Your code must be changed. So there's an issue, and the backend team must notify you that they have changed the key. Okay, fine. But what if the value has just changed? What will happen? Your app will crash. Your test case will fail. But that not should be done. How we can solve this thing? We can solve this thing by making the API. Okay, what is actually basically will mock the response from the API. The API will be called. Nothing wrong with the API. The API call will be called, but the response will be fake, will be mocked by us. For example, I have called this API, but currently it is giving me the response 200. But what if I want to test that if we find an error? For that, if what we find the response of 500, response code 500. So how can we mock that? So on that sort of time, we can my second of mocking. I will describe that within some minute. I hope you understand what I was trying to uh, describe you, and I hope so. This is the perfect time for going to the code, and I'm sorry for that as I have changed some code. Right in the code, I have to fix this. Don't worry, that won't take much time. Believe me. What I'm going to do. Uh, Give me one sec. Fine. And here we go. Everything is all right. Now let me describe. So if we start from this thing, what we have done before, we have first created the object of API provider. So for creating the object of API provider, we need a parameter. Okay, so what is the parameter? That was the client. We need the client. But on that, on the real test, or on the real API test, we can use the client, uh, the basic client as a basic client. But for the mocking, we will use another constructor of that client class. That is the mock class. Okay, so you can even write that new. So and the mock client does need a callback. So what the callback actually does, callback will hold the response. Okay, so what we are doing, we are mocking the response, okay, through the client. We are mocking the response of that API through the client. Fine. What's the data? So what will be the JSON map or the data JSON or the just JSON? As I wanted it to be very simpler, I have just added the simple a singular key value pairs, the ID. So you can write thing like what it does has the user ID also a blah blah thing. But you can the user ID maybe one okay ID. Yeah, you can write something like that and that's fine. So as much parameter you want to add it, there is nothing wrong with that. I was just showing you. Connect that. Now we'll get the response. Oh, sorry, we will return the response by using the response structure. This is also a structure for you. Hmm, if you don't understand, that doesn't Kotlin. So in the response constructor, we need two parameters. First one is response body and second one is code. So we are mocking the response 100. That's a success, and we want to get uh, just put that map as that should be a JSON, okay, and this is actually a map, okay, so this is not a start or just they don't know how to create JSON, but they can do they can convert a map into JSON or they can encode a map into JSON or they can decode a JSON into map. Fine enough. So what it's doing, it is converting that map into then in the parameters or the argument that for all of that we can have the API provider object, and before we have called for the face post thought or face post API, then comparing you can say as I have added one threading here, so I added 1 2 3 4 right in here. It should have 1 2 3 in here. So let me just show you. For our test. If I say 1 2 3 4 right in here and 4 right in here, just so whatever you expect right in here, that so whatever you mocking, that should so this fine again. So everything is working pretty well. And what last? The last thing that I want to show you is how to run all of the test single click. Go for here and just yeah run test. That should run all the from this for all the test. So you can see test. I hope you understand what is actually unit testing. There is thing you you like a group test. This is not grouping some test and Mockito, that is a very popular thing in all the platform, and on our next video we probably will talk about. I know very big video, but I was trying to not a nerd like then this video should be for you. And till then, goodbye, see you again. Yes, of my recording.